How do you know which albums are the best in a collection? Would it be based on your personal preference? Would they be the most valuable? Would they be the artists that you collect the most? Or how about the highest ranked on the Rolling Stone magazine's top 500 greatest albums of all time? Hello and welcome to the Music with Matt podcast. This season, I'm going through the vinyl record collection that used to belong to Al, my late stepfather. In this episode, I'm going to list the best LPs in Al's collection by looking at 4 top 5 lists. Let's start with the top 5 that made it onto the Rolling Stone magazine's 500 greatest albums of all time list. Out of the 200 plus albums in the collection, 11 have made it onto the top 500 list over the years. If I stick with the current top 500 list, which was updated in 2023, there are only 8 of Al's LPs on that list. So I thought it worthwhile to include all 8 in this top 5 list. Maybe think of it as 3 honorable mentions. At number 8, we have the Flying Burrito Brothers with the album called The Gilded Palace of Sin. This was a surprise because I'd never heard of this group before. The first track on the album made me think of the Grateful Dead right away. It has a similar early days sound, which is a country bluegrass rock fusion with harmonized vocals. Knowing that the Grateful Dead was Al's favorite group over the years, it was fun to discover similar music in his collection. Speaking of the Grateful Dead, their album Working Man's Dead comes in at number 7 in our countdown. The title track of that LP is Uncle John's Band, and for me, there may not be another song in the entire collection that evokes more memories of my childhood with Al than that one, especially the good times on vacation road trips. At number 6 is Dr. John, the Night Tripper, with the album Gree Gree. According to Wiki, this one was a sleeper hit album. It says it was music released before its time. So moving on, at number 5 is American Beauty, the second Grateful Dead album on the list. I figure there's 5 solid hits on this LP. I added the song Ripple to my playlist because it's a good track, but not one of the big hits. And I did that on purpose because I really try to avoid overplaying songs because I find that they can lose their magic that way. At number 4, Bob Dylan with his 1962 LP, Bringing It All Back Home. Hey Mr. Tambourine Man is an iconic song, although I added Subterranean Homesick Blues to my playlist. I imagine that the whole boomer generation used to own a copy of this album. At number 3 on our list today is a jazz album. It's impressive for a jazz album to be on what is primarily a rock list, but who can argue that A Love Supreme by John Coltrane isn't one of the greatest of all time? I'm not much into jazz, but I can see why history was made with this one. Al played the saxophone, and John Coltrane was one of his favorites. At number 2 is the Beatles with Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. It's hard to underestimate the impact that the Beatles had on the world of rock and roll. So I won't say anything more about the Beatles here, because we are at the number 1 position. The best of Al's LPs, according to the Rolling Stone magazine's 500 greatest albums of all time, is, drumroll, Abbey Road by the Beatles. That top album was number 5 on the overall top 500 list. The 4th song on that list is Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder. 3rd is Blue by Joni Mitchell. Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys comes in at number 2. And the number 1 greatest album is What's Going On by Marvin Gaye. It was really fun to come across some of the most iconic and sought after albums when going through this collection, such as the White Album, at least the beat up version that I have. What would be the top 5 most valuable? Well, according to the lowest price fetched on Discogs, at number 5 we have the Flying Burrito Brothers with The Gilded Palace of Sin. 3 LPs are tied at number 4, Expression by John Coltrane, A Love Supreme by John Coltrane, as well as American Beauty by the Grateful Dead. In 3rd place we have John Coltrane again with Lush Life. At number 2, we have Stan Getz and Joao Gilberto with the album Getz Gilberto. It looks like it would fetch around $200. And the number 1 most valuable LP in the collection is Funky Soup by the Sir Winston Churchill Stage Band. This album is from a high school in the 60s. I couldn't find the exact year, and I didn't find any copies available online for sale. Since most of the albums in the collection are listed for only a few dollars each, the real value of the albums comes from personal enjoyment. And one semi-objective way to know if you enjoy an album is to collect more albums from the same artist. So here are the top 5 most collected artists in Al's LP's collection. At number 5, Well, there are many artists tied at number 5 with 3 albums. So let's move up to number 4. Artists with 4 albums in the collection, and they are Harry Belafonte, The Beatles, Josh White, and Hot Tuna. At number 3, we have an artist with 8 albums in the collection. Can you guess who it is? 3, 2, 1. Bob Skaggs. Yeah, big surprise for me too. More on Bob Skaggs soon. At number 2, we have an artist with 10 albums in the collection. Would you also be surprised to learn that it's Ry Cooder? I was. But no surprise at number 1, where we have the Grateful Dead with 4 albums. Wait, what? Yes, Al had a ton of Grateful Dead albums and music on CD and concert recordings on tape, and there may be more, which highlights to me just how inaccurate that top 5 list is in determining the best albums in the collection. How about the top 5 albums that you'd want to listen to the most? Your desert island picks. This would be the most subjective list, but probably the only list that matters. My 5 right now are, at number 5, Abbey Road by the Beatles. And the variety of styles makes it fun to listen to. I enjoyed the heavier, more forward-sounding rock songs that make this album one that can be played on repeat. At number 4, Slow Dancer by Boz Scaggs. This is a surprise because I couldn't even tell you what Boz Scaggs sounded like before listening to this collection. I added the song Angel Lady, Come Just in Time to the playlist. Listen to these lyrics. Angel Lady, come just in time, chase that devil from my broken mind, got back my soul from the lost and found, kicked that trip that had me chained and bound, Angel Lady, come just in time. I don't know what he's singing about, but it sounds deep. The album has an easy listening, consistent sound, and is mostly upbeat from start to finish. Number 3, we have Santana by Santana. Fantastic, timeless. Almost every song in this album is something that you can groove to. What a find. At number 2, we have Anthology by Junior Walker and the All-Stars. And I can't believe I didn't know about Junior Walker before now. Amazing music, amazing saxophone, full of hits and recognizable songs. I just didn't know that was his name and that he'd been so prolific. And what an amazing find this one was too. Tell you what, when listening to and cataloging the albums, I record my initial reactions and thoughts. So here, listen to this snippet. I feel like such an idiot not knowing Junior Walker's name because I know his music so well. I didn't know it. What a great surprise. And at number 1, American Beauty by the Grateful Dead. Of the Grateful Dead albums that I've heard so far, this one is my favorite. I was a young kid in the late 70s, but I remember those days and the feeling of being there when I listened to this album, especially the house we used to live in on Habgood Street. You can view and listen to all of Al's LPs on my Spotify playlist. The link is in the description. I hope you enjoyed these countdowns. Did it make you want to listen to the Rolling Stone Top 500 list? It did for me. Before I sign off, I want to tell you that in other episodes, I gave all of my research materials to AI and it created a podcast with 2 hosts. I call it the Botscast. For this episode, I gave AI more research material than I used and asked it to do a countdown of the 8 albums on the Rolling Stone Top 500 list. I'm going to listen to it now. Once again, I am impressed by Google's AI here. The hosts adjusted their style to the countdown and they had interesting things to say about each song. It's pretty entertaining. The link to the Botscast is in the description. There, you'll also find links to Al's LP's rock playlist on Spotify. There, I've selected one song from each album to create the playlist. There's a link to my feedback and survey form, and there's even a link to support me so that I can continue to create content that is ad-free that you cannot find anywhere else in the Webiverse. Thank you for listening, and have a great rest of your day.